Welcome to the Upside Down Kingdom.
Hey there, welcome to the sermon preview for this week. Got Bill Beck with me here today. Bill is going to be preaching for us this coming Sunday, jumping into the second part of the conversation on the Lord's Prayer.
Right. The way to pray, part two.
The way to pray, part two. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 6, 11 through 15. Yep, right. 11 through 15. And so again, we're just continuing on in our Upside Down Kingdom series, on the Sermon on the Mount. This is week 12.
Week 12.
Week 12. We've kind of been flying through this.
We have. It seemed like when you said about 20 weeks, that sounded like a long time, and we're just zipping right along. It's going fast.
It is, and it seems like the series that are really deep and rich always go really fast.
Right.
But that's the whole Bible, though, so maybe they always go fast.
Some of the Old Testament stuff gets a little slow.
Maybe.
Yes.
So anyway, okay, Bill, tell us, what do we need to know for this coming Sunday?
Well, Nick, you did a great job this past Sunday, kind of pointing out that the first half of the Lord's Prayer is putting our focus on our posture towards God and recognizing that it's about His name and His kingdom and His will.
Right.
And then now, it's not a coincidence, but the transition from your scripture last week to this scripture for this coming Sunday is at a transition point from about God to, okay, what is our part in the prayer?
Yeah.
In my Bible, it's a real clear definition. I'm kind of an underliner, and I used for 40 some years. I've used colored pencils.
Okay.
So in my Bible, your name, your will, your kingdom are in a dark green, and then underneath it, I've got the three us's in a light green. So you see that stark contrast in color there.
Sure.
So
yeah.
That's kind of where you put the dividing line, which is a natural transition point for that.
Yeah.
So with that, we start out now. We're going to look at "Give us this day our daily bread," and to me, as I've reflected on this, it kind of almost feels like Jesus is pointing back to the manna in the desert.
Yeah.
Because they wake up in the morning. Here's all this stuff on the ground. They can gather whatever they want, and everybody ends up with the right amount. Whether they gather a bunch, or they gathered little, they all end up with the same amount. And God told Moses to tell them, don't save any for tomorrow.
Right.
And some of them still saved it for tomorrow, and just overnight it became maggoty and smelly.
Right. Spoiled.
So He wanted us to be dependent day by day upon God.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I don't know if Jesus intended that, but it kind of seems like that is kind of a point back at that.
I'm guessing it might have been intentional.
Jesus is a little smarter than I am. So, but sometimes we read into things.
Sure.
And then the next section of that is about forgiveness, but I'm going to kind of drop that down to the end.
Okay.
Because Jesus has some extra comments, some extra insights to add. So I'm going to do our daily bread and then temptations. We're going to kind of look at, the prayer says, lead us not into temptation, which almost sounds like God is the one who's tempting us. And I think we're going to see that it's not God that's doing the tempting. Yeah. So we have to try to look at that language to see does He really mean that, or
get some clarity within what that looks like. Yeah.
Right. And then we'll get to the forgiveness part, and that's a big piece, because like I say, that's there's the Lord's Prayer, and then at the end there's a couple of verses where Jesus adds additional insights onto how important it is for us to forgive. And there are a few places else in the Sermon on the Mount where there's a condition. As you judge, you will be judged. And in this, Jesus clearly says, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Not we might do it or we're planning to, but as we do it to others, that's how it will be done to us. So that's an important piece, and we're kind of going to wrap up with that and just see where that takes us.
So the assumption is from Jesus that we are forgiving our debtors, right? That's the assumption.
That's the expectation.
The expectation.
The Beatitudes, blessed is it. If you have this virtue, you'll be blessed in this way.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily you have to, but if you do,
Yeah.
here's what will happen for you.
Yeah.
This is, you want to be forgiven, but only as much as you forgive others.
Right. Yeah, good. Yeah, well, looking forward to what God has laid on your heart in this. Bill, as people are preparing for this and kind of digging deep into this Lord's Prayer, would you have some kind of question for them to reflect on?
Sure. I think an important piece, and sometimes I've heard people say, well, I can forgive them, but I can't forget.
Sure.
Which makes me question, until we get really old, we can't have
Sure.
we can't just forget things necessarily, but are there people in our lives that we know we have not forgiven them? We may have given lip service to it, but from our heart, have we forgiven them?
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus is looking for. It's what's in your heart.
Yeah.
So that'd be the question.
Yeah.
Are there people in your life that you need to forgive?
Yeah. And that's such a good question, because I think there's times where maybe in our head we say, yes, I have, but in our heart, we haven't. I know that happened to me in my life, where something happened to me, somebody hurt me, I thought I had forgiven them, and a couple years later, I realized that my heart said otherwise, that I really hadn't fully forgiven them. I thought I had, but I hadn't. So forgiveness is one of those things that can be kind of tricky, I guess, might be the right word to say. It takes some time to process and to fully realize and reach that forgiveness.
And sometimes I think it might take some time down the road to realize that's still raw.
Yeah.
Which means maybe I have not forgiven them as I thought I had.
Yeah. Well, it also brings up the question, does forgiveness have to be a one-time event, or is it an ongoing process?
I think maybe both.
Maybe both.
Jesus says, if your brother sins against you and comes to you 7 times in the same day, forgive him 7 times. So, you can't let the first one go. The multiple ones will just kind of accumulate on you.
So maybe it's a little bit of both
in
that. So anyway, all right. Well, we're looking forward to Sunday morning. Hope you are as well. Take care.
Blessings to you.
It is upside down.